again, 250 million miles away, and invisible behind the cold yellow sun. The hell fever lessened with the completion of the shelters, but it still killed each day. Chiara and his helpers worked with unfaltering determination to find a cure for it, but the cure, if there was one, eluded them. The graves in the cemetery were 40 long by 40 wide, and more were added each day. To all the fact became grimly obvious. They were swiftly dying out, and they had yet to face Ragnarok at its worst. The old survival instincts asserted themselves, and there were marriages among the younger ones. One of the first to marry was Julia. She stopped to talk to Prentice one evening. She still wore the red skirt, now faded and patched, but her face was tired and thoughtful and no longer bold. "Is it true, John," she asked, "that only a few of us might be able to have children here, and that most of us who tried to have children in this gravity would die for it?" "It's true," he said, "but you already knew that when you married." "Yes, I knew it." There was a little silence. "All my life I've had fun and done as I pleased. The human race didn't need me, and we both knew it. But now, none of us can be apart from the others or be afraid of anything. If we're selfish and afraid, there will come a time when the last of us will die, and there will be nothing on Ragnarok to show we were even here. I don't want it to end like that. I want there to be children, to live after we're gone. So I'm going to try to have a child. I'm not afraid, and I won't be." When he did not reply at once, she said, almost self-consciously, "Coming from me, that all sounds a little silly, I suppose." "It sounds wise and splendid, Julia," he said, "and it's what I thought you were going to say." Full spring came, and the vegetation burst into leaf and bud and bloom quickly, for its growth instincts knew in their mindless way how short was the time to grow and reproduce before the brown death of summer came. The prowlers were suddenly gone one day, to follow the spring north, and for a week men could walk and work outside the stockade without the protection of armed guards. Then the new peril appeared, the one they had not expected: the unicorns. The stockade wall was a blue-black rectangle behind them, and the blue star burned with the brilliance of a dozen moons, lighting the woods in blue shadow and azure light. Prentice and the hunter walked a little in front of the two riflemen, winding to keep in the starlit glades. "It was on the other side of the next grove of trees," the hunter said in a low voice. "Fred was getting ready to bring in the rest of the woods goat. He shouldn't have been more than 10 minutes behind me, and has been over an hour." They rounded the grove of trees. At first it seemed there was nothing before them but the empty grassy glade. Then they saw it lying on the ground, no more than 20 feet in front of them. It had been, a man. He was broken and stamped into hideous shapelessness, and something had torn off his arms. For a moment there was dead silence, then the hunter whispered, "What did that?" The answer came in a savage, squealing scream and the pound of cloven hooves. A formless shadow beside the trees materialized into a monstrous charging bulk, a thing like a gigantic gray bull, 8 feet tall at the shoulders, with the tusked, snarling head of a boar, and the starlight glinting along the curving, vicious length of its single horn. "Unicorn!" Prentice said, and jerked up his rifle. The rifles cracked in a ragged volley. The unicorn squealed in fury and struck the hunter, catching him on its horn and hurling him 30 feet. One of the riflemen went down under the unicorn's hooves, his cry ending almost as soon as it began. The unicorn ripped the sod in deep furrows as it whirled back to Prentice and the remaining riflemen, not turning in the manner of four-footed beasts of earth, but rearing and spinning on its hind feet. It towered above them as it whirled, the tip of its horn 15 feet above the ground, and its hooves swinging around like great clubs. Prentice shot again, his sights on what he hoped would be a vital area, and the rifleman shot an instant later. The shots were true. The unicorn's swing brought it on around, but it collapsed, falling to the ground with jarring heaviness. "We got it," the rifleman said. "We—" It half scrambled to its feet and made a noise, a call that went out through the night like the blast of a mighty trumpet. Then it dropped back to the ground, to die while its call was still echoing from the nearer hills. From the east came an answering trumpet blast, a trumpeting that was sounded again from the south and from the north. Then there came a low and muffled drumming like the pounding of thousands of hooves. The rifleman's face was blue-white in the starlight. "The others are coming. We'll have to run for it." He turned and began to run toward the distant bulk of the stockade. "No!" Prentice commanded, quick and harsh. "Not the stockade!" The rifleman kept running, seeming not to hear him in his panic. Prentice called to him once more. "Not the stockade! You'll lead the unicorns into it!" Again the rifleman seemed not to hear him. The unicorns were coming in sight, converging in from the north and east and south, the rumble of their hooves swelling to a thunder that filled the night. The riflemen would reach the stockade only a little ahead of them, and they would go through the wall as though it had been made of paper. For a little while the area inside the stockade would be filled with dust, with the squealing of the swirling, charging unicorns and the screams of the dying. Those inside the stockade would have no chance whatever of escaping. Within 2 minutes it would be over. The last child would have been found among the shattered shelters and trampled into lifeless shapelessness in the bloody ground. Within 2 minutes all human life on Ragnarok would be gone. There was only one thing for him to do. He dropped to one knee so his aim would be steady, and the sights of his rifle caught the running man's back. He pressed the trigger, and the rifle cracked viciously as it bucked against his shoulder. The man spun and fell hard to the ground. He twisted to raise himself up a little and look back, his face white and accusing and unbelieving. "You shot me!" Then he fell forward and lay without moving. Prentice turned back to face the unicorns and to look at the trees in the nearby grove. He saw what he already knew. They were young trees, and too small to offer any escape for him. There was no place to run, no place to hide. There was nothing he could do but wait, nothing he could do but stand in the blue starlight and watch the devil's herd pound toward him, and think, in the last moments of his life, how swiftly and unexpectedly death could come to a man on Ragnarok. The unicorns held the rejects prisoners in their stockade the rest of the night and all the next day. Lake had seen the shooting of the riflemen, and had watched the unicorn herd kill John Prentice and then trample the dead rifleman. He had already given the order to build a quick series of fires around the inside of the stockade walls, when the unicorns paused to tear their victims to pieces. Grunting and squealing in triumph as bones crushed between their teeth and they flung the pieces to one side. The fires were started and green wood was thrown on them, to make them smolder and smoke for as long as possible. Then the unicorns were coming on to the stockade, and every person inside it went into the concealment of the shelters. Lake had already given his last order. There would be absolute quiet until and if the unicorns left, a quiet that would be enforced with fist or club wherever necessary. The unicorns were still outside when morning came. The fires could not be refueled. The sight of a man moving inside the stockade would bring the entire herd charging through. The hours dragged by. The smoke from the dying fires dwindled to thin streamers. The unicorns grew increasingly bolder and suspicious, crowding closer to the walls and peering through the openings between the rails. The sun was setting when one of the unicorns trumpeted, a sound different from that of the call to battle. The others threw up their heads to listen, then they turned and drifted away. Within minutes, the entire herd was gone out of sight through the woods toward the north. Lake waited and watched until he was sure the unicorns were gone for good. Then he ordered the all-clear given, and hurried to the south wall to look down across the barren valley and hope he would not see what he expected to see. Barbara came up behind him to sigh with